Welcome to the Belated Tech Channel's 52nd edition of the Space and Tech Rewind. We are reviewing the milestones that occurred on each day in the week of June 7th through June 13th in space exploration, science, and technology. June 7th, 1954. Alan Turing, a computer science pioneer, one of the secret code breakers, working at Britain's Bletchley Park during World War II, killed himself by eating an apple containing cyanide on this date. Turing conceived of the idea of reducing programming instructions to binary numbers in order to ease the task of designing computers and writing software for them. The scientist's efforts were also crucial in deciphering encrypted German communications during World War II, giving the Allies critical information about enemy intentions throughout the rest of the war. In 1952, Turing's relationship with a young Manchester man was discovered, and he was arrested for homosexuality, absurdly a crime in the UK at that time. In order to avoid jail, he agreed to estrogen injections for a year in an attempt to curb his libido. He also had his security clearance revoked by the GCHQ, the UK's analog to the US's National Security Agency, effectively putting him out of work. 2 years after his arrest, he took his own life. June 8, 1978. Intel introduced the 16-bit 8086 processor with clock speeds of 10, 8, and 5 MHz on this date. Chosen by IBM in 1980 for its seminal PC, the x86 architecture would become critical to every PC-compatible machine built thereafter. In fact, the current 21st century line of Intel Core processors is still based on the same architecture that was introduced with the 8086. Some companies have chosen to align with Intel's x86 architecture, and others have made a significant effort to avoid being tied to it. Apple originally chose Motorola's PowerPC processor architecture for its Macs, but with Steve Jobs taking up the reins again at the company in the late 1990s, Apple would migrate to Intel x86 architecture. Oracle and Google went in the other direction, designing a programming language and an operating system that would work regardless of the hardware being used. Intel's x86 is still the top-selling microprocessor in the world as of 2021, and the company is the world's second largest semiconductor designer and manufacturer. Who is the world's largest? Samsung, which does sell more processors than Intel, but for embedded applications like cameras and smartphones. June 9th, 1993. The motion picture Jurassic Park premieres in Washington, D.C. on this date. The highest-grossing film in history at the time, the contributions of Jurassic Park to the field of special effects is perhaps as important as the original Star Wars movie 16 years prior. The movie was based on the best-selling novel of the same name by Michael Crichton and starred Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough, and Samuel Jackson. During the production of the movie, the decision was made to incorporate the use of computer-generated imagery, or CGI, in a large scale. By interweaving the use of CGI and animatronics, the movie's special effects were of a realism unprecedented at the time. Jurassic Park jump-started a wave of movies that made heavy use of CGI throughout the rest of the 1990s, and at present, the use of CGI pioneered by the movie is now entirely commonplace. June 10th, 1977. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak's Apple Computer Inc. first shipped its Apple II computer on this date. The first in a long line of related computers, the original model cost $1,298 and came with 4K of RAM, upgradable to 48 kilobytes, and had sound and color graphics. It also had the basic programming language built in, which made programming easy. Apple II sold particularly well in schools and, with the arrival of the VisiCalc spreadsheet program, in the small business market. We took a look back at the Apple II computer and the way it propelled its two designers, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, to prominence in episode 4. It is one of our earliest videos, so we apologize for the production quality in advance, but it is worth the watch. We're going away from the narrative-driven episode in the future towards the hands-on review, so if you like historical narrative videos, we encourage you to see episodes 1 through 39, which are in that format. June 11th, 1928. Frederick Stamer flew a rocket-boosted glider from the Rhone Mountains in western Germany on this date, making it the first manned rocket-powered aircraft flight. The development was funded by Opel, the canard layout glider was designed by Hans Lippisch, and the powder rockets were developed by Sander. It was hoped to develop a method of launching gliders that would allow the pilot to get airborne without the traditional tow aircraft or fixed rail launcher. After 2 abortive attempts, Stamer finally made a successful flight, traveling about 1.5 kilometers in 70 seconds. On the second flight, one of the 2 motors exploded, setting the aircraft on fire. Stamer landed successfully, but further attempts were abandoned. The Opel rocket glider was not the last word in German rocket-powered airplanes. We covered the first flight of the Messerschmitt Me-163 rocket fighter in Milestones 96. June 12, 1909. The ceremonial opening was held for the Queensboro Bridge, the first significant double-deck bridge in the U.S. on this date. It had been opened to traffic on March 30th of 1909. Architect Henry Hornbostel collaborated with famed bridge engineer Gustav Lindenthal to design and erect the massive silver-painted trusses that span the East River between 59th Street in Manhattan and Long Island City in Queens. Not only was this a landmark cantilever bridge in the history of U.S. bridge design, but the opening of the Queensboro Bridge immediately stimulated further housing development of Queens from a largely rural area and brought Long Island City out of its former isolation. We covered another famous New York City bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, in Milestones 94. June 13th, 1963. McDonnell Aircraft's Project Mercury contract was terminated on this date. McDonnell had already essentially concluded its Mercury activities, and spacecraft 15B had been delivered to Cape Canaveral. A termination meeting held at the Manned Spacecraft Center on the 14th settled the disposition of Mercury property and directed McDonnell to furnish the Gemini Project Office with a list of key Mercury personnel who might be reassigned to Gemini. Although McDonnell had designed the Mercury capsule and was the general contractor for the Gemini program, it was NASA that designed the Gemini capsule. This critical change signaled the nearing end for McDonnell Aircraft's involvement in the U.S. space program. In 1966, which was the effective last year for Project Gemini and the X-20 Dyna-Soar spaceplane-related asset reentry vehicle program, the other major space contract directed by McDonnell, the company was effectively done with NASA. The company managed to postpone its separation from NASA by purchasing Douglas Aircraft in 1967, which was a subcontractor for the Saturn V rocket used in the Apollo program. We covered Douglas Aircraft in Milestones 92. Before we get to the current event of the week, we wanted to see if you enjoyed this 50-second episode of Belated Tech's The Space and Tech Rewind. If so, click that like button. Did you agree with our choices, or are there other events that were better? Go ahead and share with us by dropping a comment below. And if you have suggestions for an event in the future, we'll take those too. We'll credit events we pick for future videos to those viewers that post them. We hope you have been enjoying our content. Have we earned your subscription to our channel? If yes, and you have not yet taken the opportunity as of yet to subscribe, please take a moment to do so now, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss upcoming videos. We want to continue delivering great content to you. You can always unsubscribe, and subscribing is free. On May 28, 2021, retired U.S. Air Force Colonel, longtime NASA astronaut, and Space Shuttle Commander James Halsell pleaded guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and an assault connected to a drunk driving incident that resulted in the 2016 deaths of 11-year-old Naomi James and 13-year-old Jayla Parker. The convictions were the result of a plea deal where the 64-year-old Halsell agreed to serve 4 years in prison and 10 years of probation. The case was particularly egregious, as the former astronaut was already on probation for a DUI-related accident in 2014. Halsell had been the pilot for the shuttle Columbia on STS-65 and the shuttle Atlantis on STS-74. He was then the commander for the Columbia on STS-83 and STS-94, and then the Atlantis on STS-101 in May of 2000. After his 5th flight, he was removed from the astronaut rotation and served in a series of management positions in NASA until 2006, when he retired to join ATK Launch Systems as a vice president. In 2011, he left ATKLS to take a position of technical director in Dynetics Space Division. It is not clear if Halsell was still with Dynetics in 2016, or his employment status as of the date of his sentencing. Alabama District Attorney Hayes Webb summarized the case by saying, quote, "It serves as a reminder that there's a very fine line. You have someone who has been to space 5 times, and because of a bad decision on his part, wound up killing 2 girls." Links to some of our most recent episodes can be found in the description section below. You can peruse our entire 250-plus video library by looking at our playlists, which conveniently sort videos by subject. We announce all new videos on our microblogging accounts, as well as in the community feed for this channel. Want to know how to navigate our channel content? We refer to retrotech and innovation documentary segments as episodes. Coverage of current events in space exploration, science, and technology are labeled as shorts. Space and tech history are documented in an anthology called Milestones. And gameplay recordings can be discovered on the Belated Tech Gaming channel in videos called walkthroughs and side missions. Stay connected by occasionally checking our Instagram feed and Minds page, where we post content from our upcoming episodes and from episodes past that you may have missed, and where we cover current news and events related to channel content. Thanks for watching.